Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today that challenges, well, a pretty common idea about getting older.
Right.
Most of us think aging after, say, 80 is just a slow fade, a gradual decline.
Yeah, predictable.
But the sources we're looking at today paint a very different picture. They suggest it's much more dramatic, almost like a complete biological reprogramming kicks in.
Exactly. The core idea that jumped out from the material is this concept of a hidden switch
Yeah,
flipping around age 80.
the hidden switch.
Yeah. The research suggests the body stops optimizing for peak performance. That's sort of the goal in middle age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it shifts its entire strategy. The new, single-minded priority becomes survival. Pure and simple.
And this isn't gradual, it's presented as a definite shift.
A sudden, systemic reorganization. And interestingly, it's argued this is universal. Doesn't matter if you were a marathon runner or a lifelong vegetarian.
Wow.
The body obeys a new set of biological laws.
Wow. Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to map out that reorganization for you, our listener. We're zeroing in on 5 specific, irreversible biological transformations thresholds, as the sources call them. We want to know what really changes deep down.
We're talking muscles, senses, skin, brain, even the sleep clock. It's about understanding the new rules the body operates under.
And the trade-offs it makes.
Exactly. The cellular and systemic compromises just to keep the lights on, essentially.
Okay, let's start with the senses. The first line of defense, the sources say the world literally starts to taste different. And it's physiological, not just preference changing.
Yeah. And that loss of taste, it's a bigger deal than people realize. It's a major structural shift.
No, so.
Well, according to research cited, by the time you hit 80, you've likely lost nearly 70% of your taste buds.
70%, that's huge.
It really is. I mean, taste buds regenerate pretty quickly when we're young, like every 10 days or so.
Right.
But with age, that process slows way down. The remaining buds kind of flatten and eventually die off without efficient replacement.
And this isn't just about enjoying food less. You mentioned it becomes a health issue. How does losing taste connect to something like, say, hypertension?
Because taste buds are protective. They help us detect spoiled food, bitter toxins, even extreme saltiness.
Okay.
When that system fails, people often unconsciously start adding way more salt or sugar to get that flavor hit they remember.
Ah, so they're compensating without realizing the input signal is faulty?
Precisely. They're flavoring their way into trouble. And the data backs this up. One study found older adults who lost over half their taste sensitivity were 40% more likely to develop hypertension or diabetes within 5 years.
40% just from that sensory change.
Yeah. And there's more. Saliva production also slows down dramatically after 80.
Hmm?
Saliva carries taste molecules, right? So less saliva means blunted flavor. It leads to what researchers call gustatory fatigue. Food starts tasting flat, like cardboard is a common description.
And we can't talk taste without smell, can we? That's like, what, 80% of flavor perception?
Absolutely. And smell loss presbyosmia really accelerates after 80.
Yeah.
Studies show almost half of people over 80 have significant smell loss.
Yeah.
Partial or even total.
Which is dangerous, too.
Extremely. Think about it detecting gas leaks, smoke, food that's gone bad. Smell is a key environmental warning system. Losing it means losing that fundamental awareness.
Okay, so the senses take a major hit, removing a protective shield. Let's move to the body's largest organ, the skin. Transformation number 2 is described as the skin becoming forgetful. That sounds poetic, but what does loss of molecular memory actually mean at the cellular level?
It's about coordination breakdown, really. Research points to skin cells, especially those repair cells called fibroblasts, struggling after 80. They have trouble remembering how to rebuild tissue correctly after an injury.
So they don't follow the plan?
Kind of. They might respond late or weakly. Sometimes they even seem to wander off course instead of following the genetic map for perfect repair.
And the result we see is wounds taking ages to heal, bruises popping up from nowhere.
Yes, exactly. The skin itself thins by nearly 20% after 80. Combine that with a massive drop in collagen production, something like 75% less compared to when you were 25.
75% loss.
Yeah, it's a huge factor discussed in dermatology research. The skin's structure is just inherently more fragile. So even a tiny bump can rupture small blood vessels, leading to those big purple bruises. They call it senile purpura.
And the root cause of this messy healing is something called epigenetic drift.
That's the term used, yes.
Ugh.
Basically, instead of following precise instructions, the cells are kind of guessing how to repair.
Guessing.
Yeah, which leads to poor coordination. It's why infections in older adults can last 3 times longer. The immune response is hampered in that compromised tissue.
Is there anything that can be done? Any hopeful signs?
Well, yes. The research isn't all doom and gloom. Things like low-level laser therapy and even collagen peptide supplements have shown promise, improving wound healing speed by up to 50% in some studies with seniors.
So the system is still somewhat responsive?
It demonstrates the system can still be influenced, negotiated with, even if it's forgetful.
Okay, that covers the outer defenses. Let's go inside to the control center. Transformation number 3. Brain rewiring. The sources call this maybe the most strategic and maybe unsettling change. Why does the brain have to rewire itself?
It's fundamentally an act of self-preservation and adaptation to maintain function as best it can.
How so?
Well, over decades, the brain loses a significant chunk, nearly 20% of its white matter. Think of white matter as the brain's highway system, ensuring fast communication between areas.
Okay, the connections.
Right. As these pathways degrade, the brain is forced to create detours, finding new routes around the fading or damaged circuits. It has to keep working.
That makes so much sense. It explains that feeling, that thinking isn't quite as smooth, like driving in a city with constant road closures.
That's a perfect analogy. Thinking is still possible, but it feels slower, requires more effort. It's why you get those moments walking into a room and completely forgetting why, or losing your train of thought mid-sentence. The brain is actively rerouting, searching for a working path.
But the really fascinating part in the sources was about what the brain chooses to prioritize in this rewiring.
Ah, yes. This is key. The brain appears to make a strategic choice. It prioritizes emotional memory, the limbic system's domain, over recalling technical details, which relies more on the analytical cortex.
So remembering how you felt over remembering facts.
Exactly. It explains why an 85-year-old might not remember their lunch, but can vividly recall an emotional moment from 70 years ago. The brain seems to be actively selecting for connection, for narrative, over calculation, and recent data.
That idea of choosing connection over calculation, it really reframes things. It's not just memory failing, it's a strategy.
A deeply human strategy, perhaps. But this rapid rerouting isn't always smooth. The sources mentioned side effects.
Right, the misfires.
Yeah. When new connections form quickly, sometimes they don't work perfectly right away. This can cause those temporary moments of mental fog or mild cognitive fluctuations. Research suggests nearly 1 in 3 adults over 80 experience these transient periods of confusion.
But the key is, it's often the system adapting, not necessarily permanent decline setting in.
That's the crucial distinction the researchers make.
Yeah.
It's often overloaded circuits finding their footing, not always a sign of underlying disease progression.
Okay, let's move from the brain to the body structure. Transformation 4. Muscles. There's this invisible process where muscles start consuming themselves. Strength turns into stiffness. Sarcopenia. How big a problem is this after 80?
It's huge. One journal focusing on this reported recently that over 45% of people over 80 have moderate to severe sarcopenia.
Almost half.
Yeah. And while we all lose muscle mass and strength gradually from middle age, maybe 1% mass, 2-3% strength per year after 80, that process kicks into high gear. It accelerates dramatically.
And the mechanism sounds pretty harsh, the body literally cannibalizing itself.
That's essentially what happens. The balance between building muscle protein and breaking it down just collapses. Key hormones that support muscle growth, like testosterone, estrogen, growth hormone, they all plummet. But the body still desperately needs amino acids, the building blocks of protein, to keep vital organs like the brain and heart functioning. So where does it get them? It starts breaking down muscle tissue.
It's like burning the furniture to keep the house warm.
That's a very common analogy, and it fits. It's a survival mechanism, extracting fuel from less critical structures to maintain the essentials.
But losing that muscle mass comes with serious risks.
Devastating risks. People with sarcopenia are 5 times more likely to fall and break something. And studies show that losing more than 10% of your leg muscle mass actually doubles your mortality risk within 3 years.
Doubles it. Wow. And there's a hidden connection too, isn't there? It's not just about brute strength.
Absolutely not. Muscles are like reservoirs. They store amino acids that the body needs for all sorts of things, including building immune cells and making neurotransmitters for the brain.
Oh, okay.
So when muscle wastes away, you lose that critical backup supply. This contributes to slower wound healing, can worsen brain fog, and even impact mood because neurotransmitter production is affected. Muscle health is system health.
Okay, we've covered defenses, the control center, the physical structure. Let's talk about the body's operating system timing. Transformation 5. The internal clock flips. That common pattern of waking up at 3 a.m. and needing naps during the day. What's going on there?
This phenomenon is often called advanced sleep phase syndrome, and it's incredibly common, affecting nearly 60% of people over 80, according to some reviews.
60%.
Yeah. What's happening is the brain's master clock, it's a tiny region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. It starts to weaken. Its signals become less clear.
Why does it weaken?
Part of it is light exposure. Aging eyes simply don't absorb light as efficiently. Light, especially morning light, is the main cue that sets the SCN. So weaker light signals mean the SCN struggles to properly regulate the release of key hormones, like melatonin for sleep and cortisol for waking. The body's internal schedule gets fuzzy and shifts earlier.
So it's not just about feeling tired at weird times. This clock flip messes with digestion, hormone release, body temperature, everything timed by that rhythm.
Exactly. It throws the whole daily cycle out of sync.
Mm.
And that fragmented, poorly timed sleep is dangerous beyond just making you feel groggy.
How so? What are the deeper risks?
Well, the big one is brain maintenance. During deep, consolidated sleep, the brain activates its cleaning crew, the glymphatic system.
Right, I've heard of that. It clears out waste?
Precisely. It washes away metabolic waste products that build up during the day, including proteins like beta amyloid, which is strongly linked to Alzheimer's disease.
So if you're not getting that deep sleep because your clock is off, the cleaning doesn't happen properly.
That's the major concern. The garbage accumulates. Research clearly links disrupted sleep in seniors to a significantly higher risk, like 3 times higher, of cardiovascular problems and cognitive decline.
That's a stark connection. But the sources did offer some hope here, too, some ways to nudge the clock back.
Yes, thankfully. It emphasizes things that reinforce the clock signals, getting bright light exposure, especially in the morning, making sure evening light is dim, and being really consistent with meal timing. These simple routines can help retrain that fuzzy master clock.
Okay, so let's pull this together. We've walked through these 5 major shifts. Senses fading, skin forgetting how to heal, the brain rewiring for emotion, muscles being consumed for fuel, and the internal clock flipping. Looking at them all, it's clear this isn't just random decline. The sources frame it as a complex system-wide adaptation. The body, after 80, is in full-on survival mode.
That's the absolute core insight, I think. It's making strategic trade-offs, maybe sacrificing peak efficiency or detailed memory, but doing so to preserve the fundamental systems, to maximize lifespan itself. The system is still fighting, just with different goals.
And that really is the key takeaway for you listening. Even as your body might be undergoing this huge involuntary reorganization after 80, science shows you're not just a passenger.
Right.
You can still influence these systems. You can work to rebuild strength. You can sharpen focus. You can take steps, as we just heard, to reset that clock. You can't stop time, no, but you can absolutely negotiate its grip.
And maybe that leads to a final thought, something to chew on. If survival becomes the body's non-negotiable strategy after 80,
Mm-hmm.
and if the brain, as part of that, actively chooses emotional connection and narrative over technical detail, well, what does that suggest about where we should maybe focus our energy consciously right now, long before we reach that point? Perhaps the real deep dive is figuring out our own priorities, understanding what truly sustains us, and maybe investing more in that emotional, connected part of ourselves sooner rather than later. It's not about stopping aging, but maybe changing how we experience its inevitable unfolding.